we might need him here. You know, there's teams like the University of Longhorns, which I have to mention this in the closing seconds. You know, Ryan here last week mentioned that the biggest upset he thought was going to happen was ACU over UT, and we chastised him for it. We destroyed him, and he was right. We were wrong. So I have to take this chance to say, Ryan, thank you for that. You know, we're better because you're here. So thank you.
Apology accepted, if you can call that an apology.
Next up, we're going to be taking a closer look at this past week's tournament madness. Join us after the break.
There are 16 million.
Welcome back to SportsZone. Every March, we are blessed with a touch of madness that is often accompanied with the NCAA men's basketball tournament. This March was no different, and this past weekend, the tournament saw the most upsets prior to the Sweet 16 in tournament history. To further break down the madness, I am joined by analysts Jocelyn Lassiter and Julian Bell. How are we today, guys?
We're doing okay.
Yeah.
Well, she's okay. I'm doing great.
I'm not going to say
I'm doing
that
great.
okay is because LSU lost to UCLA, but we won't have to talk about that right now. But we need you in better spirits, Justin. We're talking about the madness of the Sweet 16. Now, we had, like I mentioned, 11 upsets in the tournament, which is the most in the tournament history. Julian, tell us where we are on the Sweet 16 and what we need to be seeing to kind of see in the bracket where it's going to go forward.
Honestly, what we need to pay attention to is the fact that ranks no longer matter. It doesn't matter if you're number 1, if you're number 2, if you're number 15, like Oral Roberts is. Honestly, in this Sweet 16, expect a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil, a lot of broken hearts, and a lot of stories just coming to an end.
Yeah, you mentioned Oral Roberts, who destroyed Ohio State, which, man, do I love watching Ohio State or do I love watching Ohio State lose? Great stuff. But I want to go ahead and talk about some of the biggest surprises that you're going to expect in the Sweet 16. Jocelyn, is there any team that you think we should be on the lookout for?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, Oral Roberts is my surprise team simply because, like, you have to realize coming in, they have beat 2 of the top 10 teams here that has to do with Florida, which I'm not a big fan of them. And I was so glad they beat them, and also Ohio State. So it's like coming off those two big wins, it's like it gives momentum. It gives them drive. It's like, dang, we made it to the Sweet 16. We're almost there. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. And I was really surprised by both games, especially Florida as well. So, yeah.
That, you know, it's been exciting to say the least this March. Julian, Is there any team that you can look at right now that is a sleeper going in? Not just a surprise team that has shocked the nation, but has really got a legitimate chance to take it to the Final Four?
I actually have not one, but two sleepers for you. One being UCLA, because honestly, who have they played that's real competition so far? And no one's talking about them because the stories like Gonzaga, and we have Loyola State coming out. Oral Roberts. I'm sorry, I messed up. I haven't heard about them in a long time. Excuse me. But pay attention to those. And my second sleeper also is Oregon State, because they have beaten likes like UCLA and Oregon during the regular season. Pay attention to them. They are very dangerous.
Now I mentioned at the start of the show the upset victory. Well, I guess it wasn't even an upset, but a potential upset with LSU in this last game. Was that a game that you kind of saw going differently, Jocelyn?
What? Yes, I did. First of all, let me just say, go Tigers. Let me just say, when I was watching the game, I just knew, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not anything I expected. We led all the way up to maybe about 30 seconds before second half. So when they start Michigan, I was like, we need to go back to the locker room. We need to regroup, because this is not the team that we saw coming right out the gate. Then they came out, and I'm like, okay, they're going tit for tat. Let's try to look at this a little more. I almost changed the channel. But then as I started like seeing the play-by-play of everything, Michigan fans start getting hyped. I was like, oh mama, look, this is not gonna work. And then it's like LSU lost its momentum. It's kind of almost like UNT a little bit to a certain degree, but definitely a better team that's definitely athletic. But at the end of the day, we lost. I'm actually rooting for Michigan. I think Michigan actually has a pretty good team, and like me and Julian was saying earlier, that some of these big teams are missing some of their key players. Michigan was losing a key player, so I was just like, thank you, Jesus, he wasn't out there, because, yeah, it was just too much. My adrenaline was going up and down, up and down.
I would just like to say, you said go Tigers, but they're going to go home, that is. So I just got to make sure we get that cleared up.
I don't even have nothing to say.
And you shouldn't right now, okay?
Okay, David.
I want to go to Julian. You know, she mentioned Michigan, and, you know, that may be a team for Jocelyn to be looking at and for the nation to be looking at as the #1 seed. Do you see Michigan really taking it to the Final Four and potentially winning it?
Actually, my Final Four, I have Michigan going up against Gonzaga, the two #1 seeds going up against each other for a historic bout in the Final Four. Are you serious? I mean, it's storybook, but if I get that, that's wonderful. Other two teams, Villanova versus Houston. Houston, no one's paying attention, but they're very athletic, very long, very lengthy, great defense, and offensively just explosive. Pay attention.
Jocelyn, what about your Final Four? Is it any different than Julian's?
I actually had Baylor in my Final Four. You got jokes. Baylor is going to represent Waco very well. I think they are a team that's overlooked to a certain degree, but I feel like they're able to get out there and do what needs to be done in order to make it. So I actually have Baylor in my Final Four, according to Houston and Gonzaga and also Michigan. So
look, last week I said the same thing to the last analyst. If you're putting Gonzaga in your Final Four and champion, you're there. It's not that great of a risk. You're not taking that great of a risk. But hey, look, I was wrong about ASU UT.
Just a hater.
I've been wrong on this show before.
Oh, definitely.
It's bound to happen again. Jocelyn,
David, you're a
look, guys,
specified hater.
it's time for a break. But don't go anywhere. We're about to dive into the wonderful world of professional wrestling. We'll be right back.
That sounds pretty magical.
Welcome back to SportsZone. On this show, we pride ourselves on our debate skills and our ability to argue our point to exhaustion. This week, two of our most headstrong analysts will be going head-to-head in a debate over the merits of pro wrestling and its consideration as an actual sport. So joining me on the debate screens are analysts Mason Shepard and Anthony George. How are we today, gentlemen?
I'm great.
I'm great. Ready to get started.
Ready.
Look, I know one person in particular is, I mean, I could hear it, I could feel it in the studio, so I'm going to go right to the man.
Yep.
Mason, give us your take on why the WWE, but any wrestling organization, should be
Yep.
considered professional sport.
All right, wrestling fans all around the world, let me talk to you. Now, professional wrestling, while it gets made fun of by people who don't understand the business, is a sport. Why? Because people always want to come up with the excuse, it's scripted, it's predetermined. While that is true, people are still having to compete for their spots. You don't just get used because of your look, and some people do, Hulk Hogan, you suck. But at the end of the day, they still have to compete for their spots. They have to prove that they deserve to be in those predetermined storylines and matches. And not to mention, they are athletes. You can't just go in a ring and do what they do off the drop of a hat. You have to work at it. That makes you an athlete. And last time I checked, athletes played sports, bottom line.
Listen, brother. Listen, Mason. I like the talk, about Hulk. He's not one of the most athletic wrestlers.
No.
And he was definitely more of a character-driven guy. But I want to go to George now. Now, let us know, what do you feel about the merits of wrestling being considered an actual sport?
Look, it can't be considered a sport. Look, we look at sports as something, a competition of two people that is undetermined.
I can tell where this is going.
Undetermined
I can see where
before
this
it
is
even
going.
starts. It's undetermined.
It's a competition.
Now, I will say that wrestling is, the wrestlers take athletes. It takes a bunch of skills. They taking hits. It's a lot harder than people truly think, especially when most of the moves are fake and they don't really ever land anything.
Nope.
But
No,
but
no.
they don't ever
I'm
really-
not
but-
going to let you call the moves fake.
Wrestling,
Some moves
yes,
are,
they
but I'm not
fake.
going to let
If
you call the moves
watch
fake.
it, you
The
will
moves
see
are
it.
not
It's
fake. I'm not. How about you get dropped on your head and tell me if that's fake? I want you
Yeah,
to
but
talk to I want you to talk to wrestlers who have been paralyzed from certain moves
I'm
and
not
say if
saying
that's
the
fake or they've been
injuries are- but, okay,
injuries.
there are
If they
lot
get
of-
injured off of moves, the moves are not fake. Some
there are
are.
a lot of moves that are fake.
Yeah,
and
the punches and the
predetermined moves
kicks.
that they practice on
They
both
are
times
fake.
before.
I
Look,
will admit that. But to say moves are fake, if you said some,
I'm not saying
I'd
all
agree
moves
with
are
you.
fake.
Then
I think some
make
moves
sure
are
you preface
definitely
that, brother.
fake, and
Make
you
sure
can
you
see
preface
it.
that.
Look, wrestling is a soap opera for men. That's what I'm going to take it as.
Okay,
it's
no.
a soap opera for
No,
men.
a
because,
soap
look,
opera. No,
it's
a
a
soap
TV
opera.
show.
No.
It's
You
all
said
about
a
the
soap
song.
opera
It's
for
not
men.
about
No,
that. It's
no.
not about
A
that.
soap opera
Look,
for men is a middle-aged woman's Friday night. Okay, let's put that where it lies. All right.
No. This is what it is.
All
Look,
right.
It's entertainment. At
Yes,
the end of the
it's
day, it is
sports entertainment.
Sports is entertainment, but more
Sports
than that,
entertainment.
wrestling is more entertainment than anything else.
But that's because the way it's presented. That doesn't mean that
yes,
it's not a
because
sport. If
it
it was
is
presented as a
taking
sport,
look
it
at-
would be that way. But it already is
But it
that
looks
way.
like it's entertainment. Look, if
Well,
you,
that- well,
okay,
yeah,
a
it
sport
looks like it's
doesn't-
entertainment
doesn't
because
go
it can be
off of
considered
something.
entertainment, but it's
I'm going to
also
go ahead
both.
and take a I'm Switzerland here, guys, and I just want to say thank you, but hold on. One at a time, I want to go, and I guess this point is mute at this point if it's fake, but I want to go to you, Mason. You're making a great point about it's fake or not being fake. Go ahead and hammer that in one time.
It's not. Look, I get sick and tired of hearing that word fake. And as a matter of fact, football players who used to walk up to wrestlers and say that it was fake end up getting thrown out of bar windows, okay? So that word can cause some serious trouble in the wrestling business. It's not fake. And now, I will totally agree with all the silly, goofy stuff that they do nowadays. Yeah, it will be seen as fake and entertainment only. But the bottom line is there are wrestlers that have suffered serious injuries. There's a guy named Darren Drozdoff. He can't feel a thing from here down. So don't ever say that it's fake, because that's disrespect to the business.
Look, George, I want to go to you because, you got to answer back. He's coming with the heat. Please, what's your retort?
I would agree they're athletes, and their injuries that are some that are real, and I think that they're not getting the respect that they deserve, and I think that it takes a lot of work, but it's not the stupid stuff. How many sports you go in the back on a regular basis and you look at a brawl fight in the back of the bench? Like that's not a thing that's in an actual sport. It's the storylines are written out, the feuds are written out.
Yep.
There's a mic on the thing. They go up and go to a mic and they're like, oh no. They have
Yep.
the Miz has his own little TV show inside of
What?
the show.
No.
Look,
We're talking about
that does
wrestlers.
not
That
equal
excludes
to
the
a
Miz.
sport.
We're
This
talking
is
about
all-
wrestlers.
this is
That
all-
excludes the Miz.
that's
We're
all
talking about people like
entertainment.
Brock,
This is
Austin.
entertainment.
We're talking
It's
about athletes.
entertainment.
We're not
It
talking
is
about
a
reality
soap opera
stars.
that takes a lot of work, but it is not a sport.
Look, at the end of the day, bottom line is this: wrestling's a sport, and that's the bottom line to quote Stone
Bottom
Cold
line
because I
is
said so.
not
Okay,
a
look, I
sport.
think I want to go to George then. Just quickly, do wrestlers, regardless of what you think about it being a sport, do they get enough respect?
No,
Quickly.
they don't. I would agree 100%. They don't get enough respect, and I think that their injuries and their time, and they should be paid more money, and they need a lot more of what they have.
Okay. I mean, I think at this
Right
point, there's
answer.
no way we're going to agree, but I think each of us brought strong points. I think Mason brought stronger ones. But you know what? We all came in with our own agenda, and I think we all got our points across. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. Next up, we're going to take a look at one of the NFL's biggest storylines going into the 2021 season. Join us after the break.
Making is, in essence, telling a story. Every time I make something, I'm telling a story. When it
This past week, we have seen troubling news coming out of Houston regarding its star quarterback, DESHAUN Watson. He stands accused of over 12 sexual assaults, as several women have attached their name on a lawsuit against the player. To discuss the disturbing allegation and what this means for the team and league going forward, I'm joined by analysts Alex Salas and Jennifer Holberg. How are we today?
Okay, been better.
Sorry, I guess I should have illustrated.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of those subjects that we don't try to shy away from, and it's been something that has been a leading NFL topic, especially regarding a player who's been talked about in most trade circles for the past month or two. So I want to go to you, Jennifer. What does this say about where the league is in general?
I've struggled with this internally for quite some days now, and I mean, the league doesn't do anything about it anymore. Like, these women continually come out regardless if it's true or not. These women continue to come out, and we'll see it, and then in a month later, it's settled in a civil suit as usual. The league really needs to look internally and really start taking these victims, keyword victims, very seriously.
No, I agree. I think in recent months, we had Chad Wheeler, a Seahawk player who was accused of strangling his girlfriend. So, I mean, this is something that is pretty prevalent in the league as far as always having an issue regarding domestic abuse. I want to go to you, Alec. Is there something that the league needs to be doing to kind of better itself in these type of situations?
Well, as we know, David, the NFL has conducted their own private investigation into the matters of DESHAUN Watson. I think really this is the NFL's moment here to really take a stand and really show some ownership when it comes to controlling these players and what they do off the field. As we know, the reports came out this morning from ESPN. Several of these women used statements such as serial predator describing what DESHAUN Watson did. That shows you this is a pattern he's continuing to do, if it is, because we truly do not know what's going on here. We don't know until the facts come out in court. But really, the NFL, this is their moment. This is their. Remember when Ray Rice had the whole thing happen with him, and the NFL shut that down immediately right away. The Ravens were forced to release him, and you didn't hear a peep out of Ray Rice ever since then. And he was a top running back at the time. So I think if the NFL really wants to make a statement here for these women, and just really victims of all kinds of abuse or assault for that matter, this is the time now to really come through and make a statement. Of course, we just see what happens in court and what the facts do show.
Yeah, and again, we wanted to reiterate, everything is an allegation at this point, and that's what we're going off of. And you know, Deshaun Watson might get his name cleared in the months to come, but right now these allegations are very disturbing, and they paint a terrible picture for a guy who is, you know, attempting to rebuild his career, trying to leave Houston, be a leader of another franchise. So I want to talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson and what this means for his career going forward. If the allegations are true, I mean, it's damning to say the least. But Jennifer, where does Deshaun Watson go from here?
I mean, as of right now, obviously taking the allegations extremely seriously. If they're true, like, I'm sorry, I want him gone. Like, I need the NFL to make a huge stance to this. His lawyer has come out and said that he has texted these females after and apologized, saying, I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Was that after the first girl, the 7th girl, the 12th girl? Like, does he not understand what he's potentially doing is wrong? If the allegations are not true, then let's clear his name, let's do everything. Let's make sure that, you know, he's still getting paid, playing football. But if I'm taking these extremely seriously right now. And if this is true, 12 different females coming out and saying you've done this, then like I want a strong punishment after.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I think we can all agree. The league has been all over the place as far as punishments go, from kicking Ray Rice out to Greg Hardy to then other athletes going and then coming right back. So it's something that I think they need to really shore up and figure out a system that works for the NFL and its victims, because this is something that just can't keep going on. But I want to go back to Alec. You know, if these allegations are not true and it's found out that, what does Deshaun Watson do? Does he stay in Houston? Is that something that at this point we're not seeing him again in a Texans uniform? What do you think?
I think it's actually it's a jump ball here in terms of the NBA knowledge here. I mean, look, we know several teams that come out recently from Mike Florio, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter have all tweeted out these teams are still interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. You look at teams like the Jets, the Dolphins, who have numerous first-round picks. But I'll give you a sleeper team here, David. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. Word is the brass isn't completely sold on Jalen Hurts yet as their guy still. They could trade away their first-round pick and several first-round picks to go for Deshaun to go to Philadelphia. I think nonetheless, the Texans signed Tyrod Taylor earlier this week in free agency. They traded for Ryan Finley, who was the Bengals backup last year. They're done with Deshaun Watson. It's just a matter of when all this clears up, where is he going to be? Because that's the million-dollar question right now, David.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of questions once everything comes to light and we get a little bit more details. But, you know, like I said, these allegations are very disturbing, and I want to thank you each for joining me today and talking about that. That's a wrap for today's show. Thank you again for joining us on another episode of SportsZone. A reminder, we are on every Tuesday at 5:30 on Charter 192 and Frontier 46. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at NTTV Sports. Join us next week when we take bets on how many Oreo cookies I can fit in my mouth at once. Until then, take care and wear a mask.